Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Friday afternoon. A big one. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman to my left, the professor, Deniz Selman, here to my right to talk about the Week 18, the regular season finale for this Philadelphia Eagles team. Still a bit of a long shot for the 2 seed, but a chance to turn this skid around, maybe get some good vibes ahead of the playoffs. A.J. Brown has helped turn the vibes around. Nick Sirianni today looked like he slept for the first time in like 3 months. All of a sudden, people are starting to think maybe this Eagles team can do it. Zach, how you feeling?
I'm doing great. Excited for the show. Always love when Professor Selman's here. I get smarter by association. No knock on you. But I do have a request that I want to pass along from a loyal listener of the show, and that is, can we retire the word vibes? What do you think of that? Are you is there a different word we can use for vibes? Or are you okay with vibes? Because it's part of the...
What do you want to use instead? Loins?
Ooh. Sorry, it wasn't...
Light of my life.
It wasn't done. It was a constructive suggestion. That's all it was.
That doesn't sound very constructive, but
okay.
It's certainly a suggestion.
In the future, don't offer Bo any suggestions. Everything is perfect, okay?
I mean, you have like years of knowing this.
Yes. Yeah. I enjoyed the YouTube comments yesterday. There was a big debate about me on there. And
no idea what you're talking about.
I know you don't. I was trying to take a suggestion.
All right. Well, now that the vibes have been ruined for the rest of the episode, Deniz, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay. We've got a lot to get to. We're going to talk playoff scenarios with the I would say the world's foremost expert in a little bit. We're going to talk about what's going on with this defense. Is there any hope for them to turn things around? Any tweaks that need to be made on offense? We've got our a bit of a different twist on the Crystal Bald Eagle predictions at the end of this show. But before we do any of that, Zach, we need the Stone Cold Newsman update from the NovaCare Complex as the Eagles prepare for this game on Sunday.
Yes, the Eagles were practicing indoors today ahead of the game outdoors on Sunday. And the weather has subsided, as we referenced yesterday, that it's not expected to snow anymore. But it was a bitterly cold day in Philadelphia today, so they were inside. It did not appear that Devontae Smith or Darius Slay were practicing. So that could be a
after
sign.
all of Slay's talk about how they need to play.
Yeah, so that could be a sign about
He said they need to play.
What's true. Yeah, true. That could be a status or a sign of their status for this weekend's game. Otherwise, it looked like they were fairly healthy at practice. It was a short press conference today that focused mainly on A.J. Brown's comments the other day, in particular, the decision to improvise at the end of that Seattle game. And Nick Sirianni, first off, said that he'll always take the fall for his players. Right?
I think as he should.
He said he appreciated when coaches did that for him, and he thinks that's what coaches should do.
You know what? There was a funny line that I thought he said. He's talked before about how, like, you know, how much he loves to be part of a football team. Yeah. You know, if only he could have gotten to play. He said he's not playing anymore because they told me I wasn't good enough. He didn't even admit that maybe he wasn't good enough to play on the NFL. Just they told him he wasn't good enough. I kind of like that.
Yes. As a quick aside here, I saw Greg McElroy give. And did you see this? You're nodding your head. Okay.
No. I was nodding at the Sirianni.
I feel extremely... I mean, nobody consumes more Eagles content than Deniz. But when you say, did you see this with Greg McElroy? I can see
Greg McElroy gave this story about Jim Harbaugh. You'll understand when I say this, okay? And this was when Greg McElroy... I'm not referencing the podcast that I was on. I just saw the clip on social. Greg McElroy was saying he was on the field before a game. He's in broadcasting now. And Jim Harbaugh sees him and says, so like, what are you doing? And he talks about his current job. And Jim Harbaugh,
like recently,
yeah. And Jim Harbaugh, like, straight face says, "So you don't love football?" And he says, "Well, no, I'm broadcasting. I'm in around the game." He said, "If you love football, you play the game until you can't play anymore, and then you coach the game, and then you die." And so when Nick Sirianni was like, I can't play anymore, so it's so great to be part of a team, I instantly thought of that clip, which I saw this morning.
It's like your approach to work, Zach.
Yeah.
Work until you die.
Yeah, and I get to be around football.
But you don't love football.
I do love football. Jim Harbaugh wouldn't think that. Jim Harbaugh can hire me for the Michigan staff, I got to tell. and we'd be moving to Ann Arbor in that case. But although Jim Harbaugh's going to be in the NFL somewhere next year.
Tells me you're not winning that fight.
Yeah. Although Jim Harbaugh could be coaching in San Diego or Carolina, maybe.
I don't even think he's going to be coaching in
not
San Diego,
Los Angeles.
Okay.
Anyways, to get back to that, yeah. So Nick Sirianni said that he liked when coaches did that for him, and that he'll always do that for his players. He was asked a follow-up question.
I really like was Larry Karras going up in press conferences?
I like that too. He's getting raked over the coals.
Yeah, exactly. Like that the media following Mount Union wanted to throw Sirianni under the bus.
Yeah, Larry. You were winning by 70 points.
Yeah.
What happened on that third and three?
Sirianni was ad-libbing on routes, and Karras was like, yeah, I called that play.
Yeah, I'm actually going to find out the answer to that. That's a great follow-up question I should find out about. Because I actually thought that, and then I thought it was a mean thought. So, so he was asked to follow up. Does this happen often? Or like, what's it say about the fact that Hurts can do it? And he said, yeah, Jalen has freedom to do that at the line of scrimmage. And then, yeah, so that was a big part of it. Should I get into my take now?
Which is fine, by the way. Like I heard Tim McManus, who I like a lot, but I heard him like making a big deal out of this. Like, isn't that a problem that's happening and all that? And it's like Nick said today, it's like, he did the same thing in Kansas City and it worked. Like when it works, we don't talk about it either, like, so I don't know. I think that's, if we knew like how many of the plays were.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that was the crux of the press conference today. A question that did not come up.
I would guess that from Tim's thinking there, it's more about in like a specific game situation where he's going to go off script and do something that doesn't make sense.
Yes. Game strategy wise. Yes.
Then that's not a great. Yeah.
No, I have a whole thing on game strategy I'd love to talk about today. So totally. I totally get that. Yeah.
A quick thing that did not come up in the press conference. I know it's because there wasn't really news today, and something that did not come up was whether or not the Eagles will play their starters. I'm speculating here. I hope it can be informed speculation from being in the locker room throughout the week. We heard what Darius Slay said earlier this week. My strong assumption is that the Eagles are going to play this game to win, and that they feel it's important to win the game. One, in case Washington loses. In case Washington wins and Dallas loses. And two, because they feel they need momentum going into the postseason. Now, things can always change. They can get alerted in the second half that Dallas is up by 20 points. And, depending on the score of the Eagles game, they start to pull Jalen and Kelsey and Lane, that kind of thing. But I don't think this is going to look like a preseason game. I think the Eagles are going to play this to win.
Well, it can't look like a preseason game for one, but you also don't like Devontae and Slay, you think are probably both out.
Well, yeah, they didn't practice today. So Devontae hasn't practiced all week. I can't imagine that they are going to push him when he hasn't practiced this week. And for Slay, he's been limited in practice, was not out there today. My guess is, given the nature of the injury, the fact that they're playing on a turf field, I would guess that they would hold Slay back. I think him not practicing on a Friday is a giveaway. They have had players miss Friday and play, but given the fact that the playoffs are in 2 weeks, my guess is they want to get them right then.
Yeah, my supposition is they're gonna play to win. Mm-hmm. If it's the late third quarter, mid fourth quarter, and the Cowboys are winning by 3 touchdowns. I think if the game is still close, they're going to just keep playing to win. Sure. If the game is out of hand in one direction or the other, then I think maybe they take some guys out.
And you think that's the right call?
That sounds right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that sounds right. It'll be the first, just a note on Devontae, it'll be the first time he misses a game in his career.
Good point. That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. Tough guy.
After all the knocks on will this size play?
You're right.
All right, let's get to get this take off your chest.
Yeah. So this is a take here. But it's something that I've been thinking about. And if you watched that press conference or you heard what we just said, Nick Sirianni's taking the fall for his players. And A.J. Brown came out and defended Nick's, as said, this is an example of when he's done it. And so I'm holding this against Jalen Hurts a bit. Okay.
Interesting.
Because, and I'll explain why. Jalen Hurts, in that press conference a few days later, was asked quite a bit about this answer after the Seattle game, was asked quite a bit about this notion or this idea, that this mere suggestion that they had a play designed to draw a pass interference.
Right.
And Jalen was kind of like selling it as if that was the case, when we talked at the time that this has to be Nick taking the fall for somebody.
Felt that way.
And I thought it was just taking the fall for like a pass, like maybe not a decision, like a pass that went all right.
He didn't have to say the pass interference thing. That was a little weird. I mean,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
He could have come up with a better
and so then AJ says,
alibi. But
like AJ literally says yesterday or 2 days ago that Nick made himself look like a fool for us.
Right.
Okay. And so I think that's where Jalen could have.
Wasn't he also asked about it this week?
No, he wasn't asked about it.
Okay.
He was asked about Nick this week, but not that play.
Okay.
But he could have taken the fall that or not even the fall. He could have taken the responsibility. He could have said then that that wasn't a Nick's covering for us. We improvised. It didn't work.
You don't have to say we, just say I.
And you know what? I understand the pushback could be, look, it's a press conference. He doesn't owe you the truth. And I agree. Like, he doesn't owe us anything. I think he owes Nick that because Jalen's the franchise quarterback. He's established. He's the guy who sets the temperature. You don't need your coach taking the fall for you. You could, Jalen gets a lot of praise. And when you do something like that in that situation and there's an interception, you can say, that's on me, right?
I think that's a good take.
So yeah, and this isn't me being like soft to Sirianni, or this isn't me like throwing Jalen under the bus. This is me saying that just a mature adult, and that like I'm talking.
But can you think of any times when Jalen has really done that?
No,
really
and that's
said that was my fault.
Well, like when he doesn't like talking about interceptions as it is,
right?
And he's just kind of like,
aside from
an unfortunate
just like,
play,
very generally like I need to do a better job. Yeah. I can't think of. Now maybe this is just he doesn't like to talk specifics at all. Period.
Yeah. So the big thing in that press conference that week was like the "we not me" thing, or I'm sorry, when I say, because he said after the game that they need to show more commitment, and that was a big part of that press conference following the Seattle game. And he was saying when he says they, he means I, you know, like that he's talking about himself there. But I do think that's a chance where, I know he's not reading everything, but that Nick brought this up about the pass interference. That's where you can say, no, we improvised, and it didn't work out, and the next one might, whatever it may be. But I got my coaches back here. I just think that's, and I could be wrong. Chat, if you disagree with me, feel free. It's okay. Like I can take that, but I would hope that Jalen can take one for his coach in that situation if it's on him.
Now, just speculation. Mm-hmm. These are different people who handle things differently.
Sure.
But does the way that Jalen didn't do that versus the way that AJ did do it, does it tell you anything in your mind, at least, about the relationship between Jalen and Nick?
So I don't think so. And I could be wrong there, and maybe I'm being naive. I've been naive before, trust me. I'm guilty of being naive at times. But I think Jalen is so programmed when he's up there that
I think that's probably right.
I've had this, I don't want to call it a debate, but this conversation with other reporters who try to read into things that Jalen's saying and try to find meaning or motive behind it. And I just think Jalen is so programmed when he's up there to act a certain way, to put out a certain image of himself, that I'm not sure that he's thinking on that level of like, let me take up for this guy, or let me take up for that guy. I do think this idea of rat poison in his eyes is like the way he approaches every one of those interactions.
But he also does go in sometimes with intention to say something, which
yes.
you have talked about.
Yes.
And so that could have been a situation
sure.
when
the commitment thing was right after the game too.
Yes,
where
correct.
like, he's thinking like, God, I'm sick of fucking Quez Watkins, right? Like,
yes.
like that's clearly what he's thinking. And then by the time Wednesday comes around, it's like of course I meant myself.
That's
like,
true.
Okay. Don't you guys think he's like a super high level professional with like his agent and all of his advisors and everyone, and it was like a strategic decision to never go up and say like specifics about a play or like that was me, I improvised or whatever.
I think
because from a PR standpoint, they could easily say like, you know what's going to happen if you start to take blame for these things is, you know, your coverage is going to get worse and things like that, like media coverage. I mean,
I don't think it's that. I could be
You
wrong.
don't think so? Okay.
No, I think it's the coach's son, the Saban, the quarterback for Saban. I think that's what it is. I think he has a way that he approaches in public because he can turn it on. Like he can be a very charming person and I think when he's up there, he has a certain approach. It's just my view.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Kelsey podcast and like Thursday Night Football post game in Houston last year, like the only 2 times I remember.
Greg
that
Bishop,
happening
Sports
in,
Illustrated
like,
cover story.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Now, Zach, you put out a tweet about how
You're using it now. Okay. Yeah.
about how this is what the 3rd time in the last however
15
many
years.
in which the Eagles are going to have a quarterback play every game
Yes.
of the regular season. Some debate about whether they should do that. They're playing in this terrible turf that is like infamous for players getting injured on. Are they really going to get the 2 seed? Does momentum matter? But Professor, you want to like ream it into us here that the odds here are
if
significant.
we can pull up the Eagles playoff scenarios chart. I mean, so the Eagles are either going to be the 2 seed or the 5 seed. The way the tiebreaker works out with the Lions, it goes to strength of victory. So the Eagles don't need the Lions to lose to get the 2 seed. The only way they can be the 3 is if they tie. So Eagles tie, Dallas lost, Detroit win. Then the Eagles are the 3. But that's like, I mean, it's a tie. It's not going to happen. So it's going to be the 2 or the 5. Vegas says there's a 12% chance that Dallas loses. Okay. If you take that as given, 12% chance they lose, which seems about right to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're talking about a 12% chance from jumping from the 5 to the 2. 3 road playoff games to get to the Super Bowl instead of 2 home games and possibly even a 3rd home game. The 2 seed, Kansas City, 2 years ago had 3 years ago had 3 home games when they were the 2 seed. The 1 seed Tennessee lost, and the 2 seed ended up with 3 home games. That's a huge difference. Like in terms of odds of getting to the Super Bowl, the jump from 5 to 2 is massive. Even a 12% chance of that jump is more expected value from winning a game in the regular season than just your average regular season game. Like most regular season games in the NFL, like don't end up mattering because teams don't, get something by 1 game. So the talk of resting starters is insane to me. Like, I mean, like yes, if Dallas is up by 20 or whatever, sure. But like going in to think that way during the week would be weird. So I'm relieved that Sirianni switched from his Monday quote of, we're going to talk about who's active and who's inactive as if it would be like normal for people to be inactive to basically like,
I'm just
switching to a
assuming
situation.
that based on the way they're operating this week.
Right. Exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I am glad that that's the case. And then, the Eagles playoff scenarios, the Eagles could play any one of Tampa Bay, Atlanta, New Orleans, the Rams, Green Bay, or Seattle in the first round. So there's a lot of different teams that can play. And you also have, if the Eagles are the 5, you guys talked about this part earlier this week, it's going to be Tampa Bay if Tampa Bay beats Carolina. If Tampa Bay loses, it's going to be the winner of New Orleans and Atlanta. And then if the Eagles are the 2 seed, it could be Green Bay, the Rams, Seattle, the Vikings, or the Saints. And this is just kind of a fun note for those of you who are into this kind of thing. All 8 NFC games are involved in the Eagles, at least potentially, as you can see from the chart, in the Eagles, just to determine who the Eagles' opponent is, which is kind of fun. Like that's not normally the case.
Who would you like to see if the Eagles are the 5? Who would you like to see? So,
I mean, it's got to be Atlanta, right? I mean, that team just seems so bad.
They have Kyle Pitts though.
Yeah, I know. The team's built around Zach's
I feel like
vision
of
the
NFL
NFL
teams. But it's a tough place to play.
I love going to home games so much, and I hate having to watch playoff games on TV so much that one of the things, this is a very selfish thing, the camera angle in that Tampa Bay stadium is garbage. Like
Very
it is
low.
like zoomed into the line of scrimmage.
Bad,
You can't see the game until the film comes out.
I wouldn't have thought
so
of that.
just that makes me dread dread, seeing the Eagles go to Tampa Bay for a playoff game, which happened 2 years ago. And I watched the game for the first time when the film came out 2 days later because that TV camera, I'm telling you, it is just it's awful. It's the worst. That and Buffalo, I think, are the two worst in the league. But.
And then if you're the two, I guess New Orleans maybe the most easy. That would seem like the easiest path to victory.
Probably
I think New Orleans at home. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, I mean
Minnesota maybe with the
of the 2 seed ones. Yeah, that's very unlikely though. It would take Dallas, Green Bay, and Seattle all getting upset. It's kind of unlikely, but yeah, it could. I guess it could happen. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the rest of the playoff picture stuff before we get into the Eagles?
Sure. I guess a fun thing to mention is so the NFC we basically have talked about. I mean, there's a couple of other things in the NFC, but we don't need to get into it. The AFC has an interesting scenario, which I just love. Like these kinds of like what ifs. In the AFC, this is a fun one. If Pittsburgh loses to Baltimore Saturday and Jacksonville loses on Sunday to Tennessee, then one of those teams are still going to get into the playoffs, even though they both lost. And the thing that's going to determine which one makes it is the game between the Broncos and the Raiders at 425 in Las Vegas. Two teams that are out of it. Who knows who they're going to even be playing in that game.
Aiden O'Connell versus Jared Stidham decide the playoffs.
And if Denver wins, Pittsburgh's going to be in and Jacksonville's going to be out because Denver winning will make it a 3-way tiebreaker, which takes it to SOV, which Pittsburgh wins. If Vegas wins, then Jacksonville gets in because then it's a 2-way tiebreaker and Jacksonville beat Pittsburgh head-to-head. So that would be unbelievably fun if that happens because that game's later. It's at 4:25 on Sunday than all the other games involved. So the other two teams will just be sitting watching
and that's if Pittsburgh and Jacksonville both lose?
If they both lose, that's all it takes.
Okay.
All it takes is Pittsburgh and Jacksonville both losing, and that will be the scenario. Denver-Vegas will be for whether Pittsburgh or Jacksonville gets into the playoffs, and that's really fun.
I try to be prudent with how I allocate finances, but I would literally buy a plane ticket for you now to fly to Jacksonville to explain that scenario to Doug Peterson.
Oh my God.
If you could tape his reaction, because knowing Doug, I think you would just blow Doug's mind.
Jacksonville fans in general would be like, "We beat Pittsburgh. Like how do we not have the head-to-head?"
I think Doug would say that.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter if Denver wins? They're already out. Like that's what everyone always says. Exactly. They're already out, so it shouldn't matter. As if that can be a rule. So yeah, it's just funny.
Yeah. What do you think Doug would say as you're explaining that?
I think he would just walk away.
You guys know.
Deniz, do you think you are famously critical, maybe not necessarily the right word, but it's on your radar how they lay these things out? Did they do a good job this year with the scheduling?
Yeah, they got lucky is what I'm going to say. Okay. Because to say they did a good job would be to give them credit for having games on Saturday, doubleheader on Saturday in a predetermined manner, which is, we've been through this. I go through this every year. Not a safe way to approach it because you could end up killing games on arrival. Some of the Sunday games, they got very lucky this year. They put Pittsburgh-Baltimore first. That's very smart because that game might not mean anything, but the only way to know if it means anything or not is the later games.
Right.
And the result of that game is not going to spoil any of the other games. So they got really lucky. They also got really lucky that they have Houston, Indianapolis, which is like a win and in for either team. That's an easy one to put on Saturday night. They got super lucky with Miami Buffalo being for the 2 seed. Yep. That's really cool. So it worked out for them that Saturday night and Sunday night and all that stuff worked out.
Okay. And are you operating?
But I'll be back next year criticizing them again for having that Saturday doubleheader. So
are you operating under the assumption that if the Eagles are the 5 seed, they'll play Monday night?
The only thing, so the Monday night will definitely be a 4 or 5 game for sure. But it has been the NFC both years that they've done it. And it was literally Tampa Bay last year.
Yes. Right. Yeah,
so the one thing that makes me wonder, would they not? Now, could Tampa Bay go to the league and say, that's not fair, you put us Monday last year? I don't know. They lost the game. So it's not like they actually had the short rest to submit. Also, the short rest thing is overblown because you go from Monday to Sunday.
There will be other teams going from Sunday to Saturday.
Exactly. And it's even worse for those teams because they don't get the long week before the playoff game.
Now you got to travel to San Francisco in that case, presumably. So
yes, but I mean, that could happen from a Sunday to a Saturday and does all the time in the playoffs. Good point. Yeah, I think that's a little overblown. In the end, the league will probably go for ratings. Yes. And I would imagine the Eagles are still drawing better numbers than Joe Flacco. So,
well, we'll see about that.
No offense to Michael Dunn, of course.
So essentially, every single game this weekend, almost every single game, matters in some degree.
It's so cool. All but 3. There are 3 games that don't matter in the AFC, but all of the other 13 games matter, at least potentially.
Which means that
including Denver, Vegas, which is 2 teams that are out of it, which is cool.
Which means that no matter where you live in the country, there are 13 opportunities to go see meaningful football. This weekend, Zach.
I get an email from this woman all the time, Nicole from Game Time. Okay, Nicole from Game Time.
Jeez,
that
Emily's ears finally just perked up. She's been not paying attention for about 15 minutes.
So Nicole from Game Time is always messaging me with great last minute deals, and because I use Game Time whenever I get tickets to games I don't cover, just as Deniz used it when he went to the Super Bowl last year. And
don't forget Feldman.
This woman emails me all the time.
Yeah, and I always
the emails really do say Nicole from Game Time.
That's what I'm saying. The emails say Nicole from Game Time. I thought that was a good way to transition this because it is like a very common email that I get, and the reason is because it's like it takes the stress away from the ticket buying process because buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. And Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. The reason why I get these emails from Nicole from Game Time is because I've used Game Time to purchase tickets, and I love how they have flash deals on last-minute tickets. I love how they're easy to find, and you can buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. And I love the image of the seat views because I've used that to decide where I'm going to sit. It's the lowest price guarantee, and there's event cancellation protection with job loss protection. I hope none of those come into – I hope neither occur for anyone, but Nicole. It's good to know those protections are there. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you are set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Tickets make great holiday gifts as well. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Check that inbox. You also might have something from Lolita at Foco. Foco is a leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise with a product line that includes apparel, accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, and more. It is the best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. It's football and tailgating season, so they've got overalls, hoodies, hats, sunglasses, bags, everything you need for a game. Foco has hooked PHLY up and provided awesome pieces for our sets. Foco always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in our description. For all non-presale items, use the promo code PHLY10 for 10% off. All right, Deniz, let's get into the muck a little bit here and talk about the state of one of the worst units in football, the Philadelphia Eagles defense. 3 games under Matt Patricia. Things have somehow gotten worse than they were before. What do you make of it all?
It's brutal. If you follow me on Twitter, you could probably tell that I stayed up all night on Wednesday finishing the film of the defense because I was posting.
Your voice sort of just dropped an octave.
Look, that was the worst film I've ever seen. I mean, it was horrendous. And look, I go through the film of every game.
And you've recommended Shield Dogtooth.
Including in bad seasons. Dogtooth's incredible. The new Lanthimos, Poor Things, is also fantastic. So, look, almost without exception, right? Like, games that seemed horrendous watching live, when you watch the film, it's so much more nuanced. It's like you realize some guys played better than it seemed. You realize you were just being emotional during the game. Certain things were just like an inch off here and there. This game was the ultimate exception to that. Like, every single thing, there were like 4 other things wrong other than the thing that made the play not work, right? Like for the defense. It was just brutal. And just numbers first and then some stuff from the film. You guys talked about it a little bit, but you know how big I am on getting to third down, right? This team had been so good at getting to third down, 6th in the league at getting to third down, going into this game even. In the second half, Arizona converted all 19 series on their way to 4 touchdowns. 17 of the 19 were converted before third down. The Eagles only got to third down 2 times in the game, and one of them was a 3rd and 2. And
they played like 10
and they were
off.
both converted. Oh my God, yeah. I mean, don't get me started on that. Coming into the game, again, they were 6th at getting to third down. Only 44% had been converted. In this game, it was 89%. I mean, just brutal. And then when you watch the details, I mean, the guys yelling at each other. I mean, like Morrow and Byard are yelling at like who has which gap. And you can go on my Twitter and see these clips if you want to. I mean, it's just brutal. There's one play where Reed Blankenship like runs down to tell Van Sumeren that he's in the wrong gap, and and Byard runs down to tell Morrow that he's in the wrong gap. Neither one of the safeties are in position because they're yelling at the linebackers. Both of the linebackers are saying, like Van Sumeren's trying to listen, but he doesn't understand. And then and then Morrow is just telling Byard emphatically, like, no, like you go there. Like Arizona luckily ran it the other way. If they had run towards them, the running back would have just gone right between them while they were arguing. I mean, it was one of the funniest things you'll ever see. And then the last play of the game, Patrick Johnson is running on. No one knows where to line up. There are like 6 different people who aren't lined up when the play starts. They run an exit motion, and 3 people chase the motion. I mean, I've never seen anything.
Up a touchdown?
It's unbelievable. And then you were there, Zach, for this when Hassan Reddick was talking in the locker room this week, right? And Jeff McClain asked him how much of the issue is because of the DC switch. And Reddick says, a lot of it, right? He says, it's a lot of it. And later asked if the confusion before the snap and things like that. And Reddick said, it's a combination of things like the timing of the call coming in and everyone trying to get in the right personnel. Which brings me to a point that I was making earlier in the week. In the first half of that game, there were 40 defensive snaps, so 39 transitions from one play to the next. And you had, or even fewer than that because you had, between series, whatever.
Right. 31
of them involved a change in, not defensive line rotations, I ignored those, just a change in which sub-package it was. So 31 of the 39 plays, that's 80% of the plays, you're switching from like big nickel on first down.
The structure of the defense changes.
And you can tell there's a formula, right? It's which down it is, it's what distance it is, and it's what personnel the Cardinals are in. So the Cardinals played, some 12 personnel. They switched to 03 and 02 and a couple of weird personnels in there. Some of it's reacting to personnel, some of it's reacting to down and distance. But I looked back and I checked similar situations with when it was Desai, and there were long stretches of keeping the same guys out there. This is very unusual for there to be this many changes.
It's Belichickian.
Yeah, well, I guess. I don't know enough about the history of how Belichick, how often he switched.
It is faux Belichickian. It is like Belichickian for the sake of trying to be Belichickian without understanding why those things are happening and what they're bringing to the table, and the like institutional deep down knowledge it requires from everybody on the field to be able to handle that. Exactly. So like when you look at like the most number of snaps that like one grouping was in the game, like percentage wise, under Patricia, or with the actual 11 players, just grouping wise, okay, not the 11 players. Like under Patricia, the most has been, it was 23 3 games ago, and then it was 16, and then it was 22. So this is like not very, like 22 out of 76. I mean, this is like a very small percentage of the plays. That's the most commonly used sub package in the game. So basically, you're going back and forth every play. You can see the players, like at the stadium, watching from the stands. I could see the players confused. There's confusion on the sideline about who's coming in and who's coming out. And then there's even more chaotic confusion about who's lined up where. We talked about how the safeties have different roles in the different packages and that kind of thing. And then there's a predictability that comes from it too, because there's only certain coverages that they play in the certain packages and whatnot. So I don't think it's even helping in terms of that. And one of the reasons that there are so many changes of which package it is because Patricia's continuing to insist on a lot of 5-man fronts against heavy personnel. 45% of these snaps were 5-man fronts in this game. The average coming into this had been 22% for the season, so he's doubling the number of 5-man front usage. And when you look at these 5-man fronts, so I just tabulated some of the stuff. So 34 snaps and 5-man fronts in this game. Arizona passes the ball on 14 of them. So you don't get to control what the defense is doing. In fact, the defense sees you're in a 5-man front and says, let's pass against this front, right? In 10 of those 14 passes, one of the defensive ends drops. It was Reddick on 7 of them, so he's dropping in 7 of his 30 drop back snaps in the game. On those snaps, Arizona's 9 for 9 for 56 yards with a touchdown plus a 6-yard scramble for a first down. That's what happened on those 10 snaps. The 4 snaps where all 5 of those guys rush, it was 3 for 3 for a touchdown plus the 29-yard pass interference. So every single one of those plays was at least completed, right? These 5-man fronts are not good at stopping the run either.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard people saying, well, they're not good at stopping the run in the 4-man fronts, and that's why they had to play 5-man front. In the first half, there were 17 runs. Only 4 of them were against 4-man fronts, and they went for 5, 2, 6, and 2 yards. It's not like there was a long sequence of like the 4-man front is getting gashed.
Right.
Like we have to bring in the 5-man front. Like that's not true. Like I understand not trusting your linebackers to fit gaps and all that kind of stuff, but when you play that 5-1-5 penny, you have one lone linebacker out there, and it was Nick Morrow on all but one snap this week. And you think he's going to be good at fitting which gap it is in that front? That's even harder, right? And so
we are on the same page that all of this would have been prevented if the Eagles had only kept Christian Ellis on the team.
I mean, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Look, Hassan Reddick basically said, look, Christian Ellis would be better. And I apologize.
I mean, yes.
I apologize to Christian Ellis for choosing between him and Nick Morrow to Sophie's Choice on my first appearance on the pod. I feel guilty for that. It's not like Sophie's Choice. Okay, it's far more dire when you watch Nick Morrow in this last game, and also
it's also
like
a much easier of a decision. Yeah.
The thing you were saying about like Patricia not knowing why Belichick did things. This reminds me, this is like a little bit of a stretch, but my cousin. So those of you who don't know, I'm from Turkey, and my cousin Defne grew up in Turkey. I grew up in Turkey too, to a certain age, and then she's in Turkey, and she's 20 years younger than me. So she was in 3rd grade. I was an adult. And I was like, what are you doing this summer? And she was like, they gave me this reading list. I was like, oh, what's your reading list? She's like, well, we're doing Turkish literature this summer. And I was like, oh, what Turkish book are you reading? And the Turkish book she was reading was a Turkish translation of the English novelization of the movie Dead Poets Society. You know how they have these like silly, it's not a real novel, it's like a fake book about the movie. Yeah. So someone translated that into Turkish, and that was her Turkish literature reading. And I was thinking, that's ridiculous, right? Like that's like so removed from the actual original.
It's like the Google Translate of the Google Translate.
Exactly.
Of the Google
So this is my analogy, right? The movie Dead Poets Society, that's Fangio, right? And then the Psy was the novel of Dead Poets Society, right? Like, and then Patricia is the Turkish translation of it. And the problem is none of the players know Turkish, okay? Yes. And like you can tell that they have no idea what the hell is going on. And Reddick talked about it's hard to learn. So continuing on the things Reddick said, and I apologize, because I know you were standing right next to him when he said this. He said, you spend so much time with one DC and a new DC at that. And at the beginning of the year, trying to learn everything he wants us to do, his terminology, the way that he calls things. And then towards the end of the season, we switch. He says it's a hard thing to do to learn the new terminology. I cannot believe they're putting in new terminology now. That's insane. I thought Patricia was just going to choose from the same menu and all that kind of stuff. They're learning new terminology. Like the Turkish translation analogy isn't that far off. You can tell from the way they're on the field, they don't know where to stand against the basic 13 personnel look with no motion, and they're all yelling at each other about who has what gap. It is insane to me. And Morrow and Byard are veterans who have been here, right? Like Byard's been here long enough now. Morrow's been here all year. Like this isn't 2 undrafted rookies like yelling at each other. So that film alone is enough to fire the DC for me. Like it is so maddening to me. I don't know if they can do that anymore,
Well,
but
they still have a guy in the building.
It's kind of the opposite of whenever changes are made. Like the first thing you hear is, we really simplified things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They're doing the opposite.
The basics.
They're doing the opposite. They're complicating things, and they're complicating things by having somebody else call a defense that's not his. Okay, and like this is. The crazy thing too is like, all right, if you made this move like during the bye week or something like that, they made it in the middle of a losing streak when they didn't really have practice time. The more we're like removed from it, the more it just seems how ridiculous this was,
and so short-sighted because it's not just that they're in the middle of the losing streak. There's no build-up time here.
Sure,
like this is it. The playoffs start next week.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like, what are they talking about this week? Like, are they going to Patricia and being like, listen, like the players are clearly not getting your thing. Like, can you, is he insisting like, no, just give me time. Like they'll figure it out. Like that was the, and this stuff didn't come up in the previous 2 weeks. It wasn't this bad. He was doing those personnel switches in those games too. Like it wasn't only because of the way Arizona was doing its personnel. So,
but so then why? I mean, you don't know the answer.
Actually, to answer your earlier question, it would be great to play the Rams, who are in 11 personnel on 100% of the snaps. Like it would be great to play that team because maybe then, like we can just stay in nickel and guys will know where to line up at least.
Yeah, but they didn't. Would you say that they looked less confused early?
I mean, there was still some confusion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and the way they're talking about Zach Cunningham, I thought this was really telling. Like Lane Johnson was on John Clark's podcast. I'll credit John Clark, even though he doesn't always credit me. Lane Johnson. That was 2 years ago. I shouldn't still be holding a grudge over it. But Lane Johnson.
You otherwise.
Well, that's true.
The two of your kindred spirits and grudge holders.
John Clark just asked Lane Johnson in general. Lane Johnson. He asked him just in general, like, how are you guys feeling about this coming game or whatever? And Lane Johnson goes, it's going to be great to get Zach Cunningham back.
Yes.
It's going to be great to get Slay back. Also, Avonte Maddox, like, he's getting his sea legs back. Like, he just talked about specific defensive players who he's looking, and you almost never hear, like, an offensive player, like, talk so specifically. He wasn't asked about the defense. Like, he was just asked about the team
Zach
in general.
Cunningham's name keeps coming up as if, like, they're gonna get Ray Lewis back in his prime here. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's again.
And the thing is that it will make a difference. But it also goes to your point, which I know you want to make if we want to move off of the defense, that as much as like the situational stuff has zeroed in on some flaws in the offense,
right?
Really, the problem with the offense is they have so much to cover for the defense. Right. Like their level of play has been pretty similar.
Absolutely. So the defense has gone from 12th in success rate during the 10-1 stretch, all the way down to 30th in success rate if you just look at the 1-4 stretch, right, in the league. And EPA per play, they're all the way down to 31st. Now, when you compare that to the offense success rate, weeks 1 to 11, when they were weeks 1 to 12, and they were 10-1. I
just want to say, just to clarify, that is not all Patricia. That's including the two.
That includes San Francisco. That includes San Francisco. So, yeah, this is just like the 10-1 stretch versus the 1-4 stretch. Like this is like the answer to what happened to the Eagles, right? Like not Patricia.
Yes.
So the 10-1 stretch, the offensive success rate 46.6%. Since then, 46.6%, exactly the same. Success rate exactly the same. EPA per play very close to the same as well, just a very small drop. And then when you look at Jalen Hurts on just his plays has a higher EPA per play and a higher success rate during the 1-4 stretch than he had during the 10-1 stretch. At the end of that 10-1 stretch, he was the Vegas favorite to be the MVP of the league, and he didn't even end up making the Pro Bowl. And someone tweeted that, like Jalen Hurts went from MVP favorite to a non-Pro Bowler because the defense is so bad. And I fully agree. Jalen Hurts' play has been just as good. You mentioned that you agree with him not being in the Pro Bowl because of the turnovers, but he had more turnovers per game in the first 11 games. He had 14 turnovers in those 11 games. He has 5 in the last 5 games. So his turnover rate is actually lower as well. So the offense is still absolutely fine. I mean, like we talk about the situational play calling and the not maximizing and all that kind of stuff, and those are off-season things to fix, right? But in terms of the actual offensive performance, during the 1-4 stretch, the offense is averaging 2.4 points a drive, which is good, which would be good enough for 8th in the league if you took all the other teams across the whole year. I just don't know how to look it up for all the teams in just that stretch. And they're also 10th in EPA per play, 5th in success rate during that 1-4 stretch. So I mean, like, they have not been the problem. And
they have
2 of their top
problem,
games in
but
DVOA.
Also, 5th or 8th or 10th. 5th maybe.
Oh, they should be better for their talent.
Better.
Yes. Given the lack of injuries and the talent on the offense, I fully agree. But, I don't want to repeat things we talked about on other shows, right? Like we talked about
there's no doubt
lack of motion and bunches. And, it was funny that, like, when Baldy was on with you guys this week, he specifically talked about motions and bunches as, like, ways that you can make this better, right? And I thought that was funny because, like, we talked about how the Eagles just don't do those things.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Before we move on, time for me to tell you about Wheelhouse. This is a classic Zach read, but Bo's going to do the Wheelhouse today.
Third person. Look at that. You're feeling yourself today, huh?
I know. I would not say that I'm feeling
myself
week today. You know all about Wheelhouse. This is where Zach goes with Reed to go get those cards, because Wheelhouse is all about cards and community. It is our go-to sports card gift and apparel shop in the Delaware Valley. We had a good friend of mine, Ed, in town this week, and he said he needed to get to a place where he could get some of this stuff. He wanted to go get some shy vintage sports stuff. You can go get that at Wheelhouse. Their motto is cards and community, because love of sports unites us all. They carry all of your favorite card brands like Topps, Chrome Baseball, and Mosaic Football, as well as t-shirts, hats, and hoodies from brands like Mitchell & Ness, 47 Brand, Junk Food, Starter, and, like I said, Shine Vintage Sports. Looking to grade your sports card collection? Question mark? Well, Wheelhouse offers PSA grading submissions. They also host tons of different family-friendly events and birthday parties every month. Stop in to either of their stores in Wayne or Westchester, which are open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. Use code PHLY and get $10 off any purchase of $25 or more in store. Also, be sure to give them a follow on Instagram at Wheelhouse Cards. All right. Do you want to talk about some of the strategy stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you guys were talking about it a little bit earlier, but like just watching Brian Johnson on Tuesday and also watching Nick on Monday in their pressers, I thought that like it was maddening to me that 3 days or 2 days after the game, they're still referring to the next to last drive as a 4-minute situation. And I feel bad like criticizing the plays there because the specific plays that they ran in that stretch. So the 1st and 20 was a quarterback sweep that I thought was a fine call against the light box that they had there. 2nd and 16 quarterback counter bash against like a zero blitz, not so much maybe. It's very hit or miss. Just throw the ball. Like you have Andre Sacheret against AJ Brown one-on-one. You know, like it's like maybe you go with that. But my bigger point there is Brian Johnson referred to it as a 4-minute situation. He said in those 4-minute situations, you're managing clock. You don't want to give them the ball back. He said that. Mm-hmm. And managing the kick line. And Sirianni referred to not wanting to give them the ball back as left. Listen, like you don't have to be like a math major, okay, to do the math on this. There's 4:18 left. It's first down. You're on the 20. The line to gain is the 10. You can only get one more first down before you score a touchdown, barring like a illegal contact
defensive
penalty.
penalties.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. That's what you're relying on. You need a penalty that gets you a first down and also doesn't get you quite to the 10. And then you need to get exactly to the 3. I mean, look, even if you were on 6 plays there, you get first down on 3rd down and then you run another 3 plays. The latest you can kick the field goal is the 2-minute warning. Like, they are going to have time for a real drive because they have 3 timeouts. They're going to call timeout after 3 of your plays, which means you only really get to run the clock on 3 of the plays. And then the 2-minute warning, if you do the math on this, and there should be someone in the booth doing the math on this, the 2-minute warning is going to cut off half of the play clock at the end of it, too. And so they were going to have to kick the field goal at the 2-minute warning, which means Arizona's going to have time for a real drive no matter what you do. And the last 3 times they've touched the ball, they've scored a touchdown. Like
with ease.
Yes. Like Gannon intentionally gave you the ball there. He kicked an onside kick. It kills me that Jonathan Gannon like came in here and like out-schemed the Eagles. It's driving me crazy. I've been depressed all week.
Stand up and just take a little lap.
And so what
this
you
is
just
exactly
said
the
there,
thing that I said Gannon was terrible at.
Exactly.
And this game has me doubting if Gannon just wasn't allowed to do strategic things on defense. I mean, it's driving me crazy. Onside kick would have been a fine idea in the Super Bowl, actually, right?
Yeah. So after the game, Nick said that the onside kick caught him by surprise. He wasn't expecting it there. And I think when they say 4-minute offense, they were programmed after Arizona scored to think, all right, we're not going to let them get the ball back here.
Right.
And I think after the onside kick, they never adjusted their approach because reasonably speaking, you would think 2 for 1 there, right? Like, let's try to score fast in case they get the ball back.
Yes.
But I don't just like they weren't factoring the onside kick. I think once they got it, they're like, all right, let's operate the same way and let's try to wear as much time.
I think
off the
they
clock.
think 4-minute offense that's just code for okay. Now it's our time to like grind the game away.
I think it's like there's 5:25 left in the game and it's tied. And so they just like turn their books to the 4-minute chapter.
That's exactly.
And
what
then
they
realized, and then they didn't realize that, hey, wait a second, we have the ball at the plus 39.
Nope.
And they have 3 timeouts, and there's 5:25 left. Like once you get to the 20, not the 21, the 20, there's only 1 first down you can get. It is not mathematically not possible anymore.
Ash coming in saying it could have been 7 plays because you're going to get a 4th down.
Even then they're going to have 1:15 left.
Right, exactly.
I mean, don't you think like having 1:15 left
and
is
that
still
is such a specific
1:15 left with that defense the way it was playing? I don't know. I mean, it's still a weird thing. If you score a touchdown, then they're going to have to go fast to try to score to tie it or whatever. There's a chance you're going to get it back or whatever. Though, let's be honest. I mean, they probably would have scored and gone for 2 and just won the game.
Probably so. And the reason this stuff matters, obviously, it's the difference between wins and losses. And in the playoffs, when it's going to be, this is the end of your season or not, like you need to get this stuff right because those games are going to be played on those margins.
Yeah, and we talked about it before, but like the Super Bowl end of half, like only getting a field goal there because of bad clock management. The end of the second half when they call timeout with like 34 seconds on the play clock when they could have just not called the timeout there would have been time for 2 plays at the end instead of just one. Not going for 2 up 14 against up 12 against to go up 14 against Minnesota earlier this year. Just an insanely bad decision. I mean, like not in
which that one he at least said he
did throwing a touchdown pass against Washington. Like that was a mistake. Like letting both Washington games. DeAndre Swift scoring when he could take a knee and the game would be over. Punting against San Francisco. The Giants debacle with the end of halftime out thing. Just so many examples of him not getting the strategy right. And I know he takes pride in it. But man, come on! Like I take pride in a lot of things, but I like realize like sometimes I'm not good at them, right? Yeah. And it's like I need someone to help me.
He needs somebody to tell him he's not good enough at it. He needs the Mount Union wide receiver. He needs the NFL.
I'm telling you, like we gotta talk to Larry Karras and have him call him and just be like, Nick, like just hire somebody to do this.
Now you watch all these press conferences. Did you get the sense from Brian Johnson the other day that his hands were tied there? That this was that?
Yeah, I think Brian Johnson's made it very clear. In earlier press conferences this year as well, that earlier this year when he talked about like we play for 4 downs there, like that's our thinking there. When Bo asked him the question, it was right after we talked about it on the show on a Thursday. Bo asked him the question, and he said like, yeah, that like our mindset there is to play for 4 downs. And he said play for 4 downs, but like it's like he's basically saying play for 4th down, which is not. Sound thinking, I don't think, and
it also changes like the next season when you're still doing it. Like there's no element of surprise there that on 3rd down you might go for 4 yards on 3rd and 6.
Exactly.
It's like the utility of that changes when it becomes a known thing that you're doing.
That's exactly right. And you guys talked about this, but the 2nd and 16 and the 3rd and 20 and the looks that they got on both of those, there were going to be 0 blitzes on both. Jalen Hurts had 3 incompletions in the game, like in the whole game, like until the last drive. And, one of them was the over shoulder to Devontae Smith. He missed A.J. Brown on an out route, and then there was the long one to Devontae in the end zone, which was very well covered. Those were his only incompletions the whole game. Like, give him a chance. Give him a chance. Hit A.J. Brown against Andre Sacheret. I mean, I liked Andre Sacheret when he was here, but come on. Like this is an opportunity to do something with the passing game. You just completed a 3rd and 20 last week. I don't know.
You're speaking my language now. Yeah.
All right.
I agree with you on more things than you might think, Zach.
We've still got a few things to get to, so let's buckle down here. Time for Goose Wisely, Zach.
Yes. Okay.
You are down 2 as we enter the last week of the regular season, I believe. But you are making a comeback.
You're making a comeback, and I have the playoffs, and maybe the playoffs will count for 2.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Depends on how
Depends
much
how
I'm
you're
up by.
doing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Depends on what I feel like doing. What kind of rules I feel
I will
making.
go first here.
Okay.
And we're operating under the assumption that Devontae Smith will not play. So that is the theme of
Somebody
this.
Just in this chat said Slay and Smitty officially out.
Officially out. Okay. Quez Watkins has more receiving yards than his entire season to date. I think that's 45.
Okay.
I got to look that up. Or Julio Jones sets a season high in receiving yards. I should have put that in here. I will give you exactly what that is.
Quez has 49 yards.
49. Okay, and I was off there.
Season, which is
and
pretty
Julio
wild.
Jones' season high this year is 34, which came against Arizona. So who are you expecting the number 2 to be? Quez, Julio, Alameda?
I'm going to go with the Julio Comes game again.
Okay.
I mean,
it's not Julio Comes, it's Julio is coming. Okay,
coming.
I think that's
it's an ongoing active process.
Yeah, it's very distracting for everybody in his general surrounding.
It's like the opposite of Sting. Was that Sting?
Yes.
I forget. All right,
yes.
sorry.
That is actually more wet than white. Quez, 49 yards. It only takes 1 play for Quez to top that, which is possible. But yeah, I think he's pretty much in the doghouse. I think they're going to go Julio and Zacchaeus. So I'm going to go Julio sets a season high in receiving yards.
DeAndre Swift, questionable with an illness.
Okay. Spoke to him for a while yesterday. I hope the house doesn't get sick now.
All right, my first one for you, Zach, is Tanner McKee outsnaps Tommy DeVito, or A.J. Brown tops 175 yards receiving in the game?
I think there's a better chance that A.J. Brown tops 175 yards a game because I don't believe that Tanner McKee is going to both quarterbacks would have to get injured, right? Because in order,
Probably.
Tanner McKee can't go in the game unless the quarterbacks are injured.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, I think that's the
unless they don't designate him as an emergency.
good point. Unless they don't,
You could use him as one of the 48 spots.
That's correct. I should ask the San Francisco.
Seattle did that against the Eagles. They had all three. Yeah.
Yep, they had Geno. Yep, correct. So I'm going AJ Brown.
All right,
175.
over to you.
Over to me now. Jalen Hurts.
Quick thing about the inactive thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Please.
Avonte Maddox from the very first snap of the game, clearly not ready.
Yeah.
And Bradley Roby is inactive.
Kind of weird.
Why?
I was very mystified about Bradley Roby's.
And then you're going to play all these 5-man fronts. You're playing 34 snaps in 5-man fronts. That's like 50% more defensive tackle snaps that you need.
Right.
And Marlon Tuipulotu, who's been perfectly fine this year, by the way, is inactive so that you can dress Rashad Penny? Like, does Rashad Penny have something in his contract or something?
I really think the Eagles thought they were going to blow out Arizona. They thought they were going to go in, blow them out, and like the second half of the game, they were just going to run the ball, play all these young corners.
Quez Watkins didn't get in the game.
Yeah.
And it's like, if someone had gotten injured, like Devontae Smith did get injured, like, you're not going to put Quez Watkins in anyway. You're going to put OZ in there. And you know, and Britton Covey didn't get in the game, but you have to dress Britton Covey in the off chance that the defense forces upon. Yeah.
I agree. I was mystified by that. Jalen Hurts sets a franchise record for passing yards on the season, so he needs 237 plus yards to get that to break Carson Wentz's record. Or Jalen Hurts ties LaShawn McCoy's franchise record for rushing TDs, so he needs 2 TDs in this game.
So if he surpasses it and scores,
or surpasses it, so two.
Oh, at least ties.
At least ties, I should say. Yeah, at least ties. Right. I thought 3 was a high number to put in.
Jalen throws for 237. Or scores scores at least 2 touchdowns.
Rushing touchdowns.
Yes. This is a good one.
Thank you.
I think the Eagles would like to not have Jalen Hurts have to throw a ton in this game against all of the 0 blitzes that Wink Martindale is going to throw at them, and on this field. I think they're probably a little bit skittish about that. But 237 is not a super high bar against a bad defense. Is he going to play the whole game? I'm going to take the 237. It's just low enough to get me to take it. I think that's a good one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In Week 16, he had 301 against the Giants.
Okay.
For what that's worth.
All right. For you, Zach.
Do you think if Shady McCoy's record gets broken, that they'll give 25 to somebody, the uniform?
No, 25.
They're just never going to
retire 25 one day.
You think
they're
going to
retire 25?
You're going to retire it?
Yeah. I think
they haven't even retired 12 for Randall Cunningham.
Or 87.
Randall Cunningham is going to, he's old. They have to retire it soon.
Yeah, I think they're
going to retire 25.
Didn't they retire 12?
No.
They never officially retired 12?
No, they just never gave it out.
Yeah, I think they're going to retire 25. He's a franchise record in rushing yards. If you retired Van Buren's number, you got to retire the guy who broke his record.
You retire 25?
He never played in like an important game, really, ever.
Every game's an important game.
Yeah, no. You know what I mean. He wasn't part of any like important
I agree
run.
with you.
Yeah.
That seems
That was
crazy.
Chip's fault.
All right. At least one Eagle, Zach, finishes the season with either passing yards, rushing yards, or receiving yards exactly on the 100. So zeros don't count, but it could be on the 100. So, for instance, Kenny Gainwell has 302 yards rushing on the season. If he loses 2 yards or rushes for 98, you get this one.
Yeah, no, this is a good one.
Or Boston Scott scores a touchdown.
I'm going to go Boston Scott scores a touchdown because I don't have the numbers in front of me of all the guys.
That's okay. I wanted that one anyway.
Okay.
But there isn't an obvious one.
Okay.
All right, over to you.
Okay. On my Saturdays, when I'm in the car on Saturdays, I listen to Glenn Mack now and Mike Sealski on WIP, and they have a bet that with 1 game left, who has more sacks this season, Hassan Reddick or Georgia Bulldogs? Hassan Reddick has 11 sacks this year. Georgia Bulldogs have 10 sacks this year. So in recognition of that, Hassan Reddick has
in recognition of that, as if it's like a wonderful achievement that they've in recognition of their completing their marathon.
In recognition of that, Hassan Reddick has a sack, or a Georgia player has at least
valuable service
has at least a half a sack. So that is Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, or Keely Ringo has at least half a sack.
At least half a sack?
Yes.
Ooh, this is a good one too, Zach.
Thank you.
These are bang up jobs. I want to go Georgia, but I do feel like after all the talk on the dropping last week, they're going to let Hassan rush the passer, and he is their best pass rusher. I'm going to go Hassan.
And then Keely Ringo is going to come in with the cat blitz for the sack.
Okay. For you, Zach, the Eagles play the wild card round on Monday Night Football, or they don't.
So I'm going to go the Eagles play the wild card round on Monday Night Football.
Okay.
I checked to see if there were any like concerts or anything scheduled
in Tampa?
in any of those 3 places.
Okay.
There aren't.
No, I love that research.
Yeah, well.
See, that's why you teach at work.
There's Monster Monster Jam or whatever isn't until February in Raymond James Stadium. I now know.
So shout out to Dave Zingaro from NBC Sports Philly. He did something. He told me an anecdote earlier this week where we had this interview with Jalen Hurts earlier this year, and Jalen mentioned something, and that you should ask this person about it. And Dave emailed that person about it, and I did not. Now, it didn't materialize, but Dave did that. And I said to Dave, I said, you know what I was up thinking this morning at 2 a.m. about the fact that you did that and I didn't. And like it pained me. And so that's the stuff that keeps me up at night.
Well, so now you have.
I apologize to Emily Berman. That Zach will now be checking the venue calendars.
Although
Emily, wake up! Monster Jam is going to New Orleans next week.
Although,
I gotta be there.
I gotta tell you this: Emily does not care about football. She cares very much about football scheduling.
Yes.
So that is actually something she would like to know. It's like where and when.
There is a video, like a home video on old school film of me being woken up at New Year's, exactly at New Year's, as a baby, as a 9-month-old baby, going into the year 1979.
Julie has her head in her hands.
And you could, like, the video is like me just like crying and being like, why are you waking me up, basically? And I asked my parents, like, what is this? And they were like, oh yeah, we woke you up to go into the new year. So your story reminded me.
You see, kindred spirits there.
There you go.
No, so a quick thing that happened.
They were just up late drinking. I mean,
well, yes, that's true. That's probably their excuse.
A quick thing that happened via text. Emily has something in like that happened today via text. Emily has something like 2 weeks from now that she needs to know if we need like a babysitter for it, and it would be if the Eagles win the game. And I'm like. And she's like, when will you know? And I was like, well, I won't know until after the playoff game, right? And she's like, well, what am I supposed to do here? And I was like, just assume that I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's why I'm saying that the scheduling she cares a lot about. In a similar vein here, Washington wins or the Eagles lose. And now there is actual percentages here because you look at the point spreads. Washington, Dallas has a better chance of beating Washington. The Eagles haven't beaten the Giants, but
yeah, I'm taking the Eagles lose here for sure.
Okay,
because they could lose the game because they're not good, and they could also lose the game because they decide to stop trying to win the game.
And the absolute worst case scenario for Eagles fans is if both of those things happen. Like if both of those things happen and the Eagles like don't win the division because couldn't beat either Arizona or the Giants, like either one would have been enough. That. I mean, even I might break then to the point that I'm not excited about the playoffs, and I'm not there. I think you go into a playoff game, you have a chance. It's exciting no matter what seed you are, but man, okay.
Now, one of the funnier stories that has come out this week, at least funny to me, is how I wrote how Jalen Hurts is starting every game for the first third time in 15 years. These stories out of Washington that Sam Howell is starting every game. Is starting every game this season. Right, and that's like an accomplishment for a Washington quarterback.
That started last week.
No, so Sam.
He was going to, but he got sick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Sam Howell's literally gotten benched. And he's starting every game this year.
That is good.
That's why it's funny to me.
All right, last one for you, Zach. Tyrod Taylor throws a prime number of incompletions, or there's a play in which yards are gained on a fumble.
I'll go yards gained on a fumble, I guess. Yeah,
right.
I have no basis for that one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for.
Okay.
That looks like a real offense with Tyrod Taylor.
Do you have a choice for your golden egg, your golden goose?
Can you run through the ones I have real quick?
Yeah, I can try. Although my notes are increasingly indecipherable.
Okay.
I have Julio has a season high in receiving yards. You have Quez tops his previous, his actual accumulation for the entire season in this game. You have A.J. Brown tops 175 yards. I have Tanner McKee plays more snaps than Tommy DeVito. I have Jalen Hurts throws for at least 237. You have Jalen Hurts scores at least 2 rushing touchdowns. You have a Bosco touchdown. I have the thing where somebody finishes the season on the 100. You have a Georgia player has at least a half a sack. I have a Hassan Reddick sack. You have they play on Monday Night Football. I have they don't. You have Washington wins. I have Eagles lose. And you have the yards gained on a fumble. I have Tyrod prime number of incompletions.
I'll go Georgia player. And I didn't include Nolan Smith in there. He can, he can also get around the edge.
All right. I'm going to take Julio Combs.
Julio is coming. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to our Crystal Ball Eagle predictions, we do have one last thing to do before that as we look back on the season that was. If you can pull this up now, Julia, I have here the spread your wins and fly draft results from
who made that beautiful?
That's a beautiful graphic made by Deniz. And we got to give a little bit of credit. It's not over yet.
Marissa did answer that, by the way. I don't remember what she said.
I don't remember what she said either.
Oh wait, on my computer it's updated. Let me pull it up.
However, we have the list here. If you look of the drafts of season over unders, and let me pull up here. Sheil had the Cardinals.
So next time, tell me about this, and I'll update the spreadsheet.
That's okay. It was a nice surprise. I didn't want to give you extra work to do.
Okay, sorry.
Sheil had the Cardinals under 4.5. That one is still up in the air. He, you can see the whole thing, but the bottom line is Sheil is 3-7 with 2 pending.
Okay.
He has Arizona, a loss there would give him an extra win, and a Jacksonville win would give him an extra win and get him to 5-7. I am 5-6 right now with 1 pending, and that is Seattle. I need a Seattle win this weekend. That would get me to 6-6. And your boy Zach Berman coming in hot. Two misses off the top, and boy, we did terribly in the first 2 rounds. It's a good exercise in the confidence value that you have. But other than that, he's rolling. He's 6-4 with 2 pending, which means that there's a chance for a tie if the Seahawks win and the Bears win and the Bills lose. Zach and I will tie at 6-6. Anything else, Zach will be taking home the 2023 Spread Your Wins and Fly championship. That would be the first 2-time winner.
Marissa did choose the under for Denver, and Denver's right at 8 right now. So it'll be her and Doug. She'll be trying to explain to Doug why she wants Denver to lose, and then she'll also be trying to explain to Doug why he should want Denver to lose.
So Doug was actually asked in a press conference this week if he knew all the playoff scenarios. And you know what his answer was?
He said there's only one. It's that we win. Yeah. No, that's good. That's what you want your coach to
That's
say.
such a Doug answer.
When you look back at that draft, Zach, is there one that you are most proud of, or one that you are most regretful of, or anything like that?
Probably most regretful of. Since it was,
I was really wrong about Detroit. I thought Detroit was gonna totally collapse.
I guess Cincinnati. Although Burrow got hurt.
That's not true. Yeah,
Detroit hung up their division championship banner, and they posted it on Twitter. And there's a banner that says NFC Central champions, and there's 3 years. And now they have a one next to it that says NFC North champions, and it's the first one.
Right.
And I'm just wow. We're spoiled here.
Yeah.
They've won 1 playoff game in the Super Bowl era, and they have existed as a franchise during the entire Super Bowl era, and they've won one playoff game. And so I think it's exciting for them to be in the playoffs and be at home and everything this year, but let's not take for granted that we have more than 1 playoff win in the last 57 years.
Yeah, the last time they were in the playoffs, Jim Caldwell was the coach. Now it's Dan Campbell. In between was Matt Patricia. So the Eagles decided they needed him as their defensive coordinator.
That's right.
Yes.
All right, Zach. Instead of the predictions for this game, which you can read on our back and forth on all PHLY if you are a diehard later this weekend.
Only for Bo to change his pregame anyway.
Only for me to be allowed to. I mean, the longer it goes on, the more information you gather. Let's do our Crystal Ball Deacon. Lolita, love of my life. Our Crystal Ball Deacon predictions, Zach. I want you to flex your storytelling muscles here. I want you to write the end of the Philadelphia Eagles 2023-24 season that you would like to cover?
Well, I'm eliminating the Super Bowl here. It's always fun to cover a Super Bowl, right?
No, tell me if you're going to get to the Super Bowl. Tell me what happens in the Super Bowl.
No. So to me, when I
What's
did
the
this
most interesting story?
So when I did this exercise, I was just thinking, what's the most interesting story outside of like if the team you cover makes the Super Bowl, that's always interesting, right? You're there.
Yeah, but how do they get there?
No. So to me, yeah. So that's what I was fixating on here. This is not up for debate for me. To me, the most interesting story that could happen would be going to San Francisco and winning with the backup quarterback. Okay, not wishing anyone gets injured, right? Like I'm not, like, I would never frame it that way. But like the most interesting story would be if they go on the road to San Francisco and like something were to happen to Jalen, like not like a serious injury, right? And then Marcus Mariota steps in. And well, I suppose Mariota has to get knocked out too.
Yeah, it's much more funny if it's Tanner McKee.
Yeah, I didn't even think that far. But basically, this idea that like results are invalidated if the quarterback goes down in a game, I think that, and I think that Eagles 49ers rivalry has juice now. And credit to San Francisco, they're the best team in the NFC. They kicked the crap out of the Eagles this year. They're so well coached. They have so much talent. They've built a powerhouse. They've built a great coaching staff, great front office. Like there's a lot there that to be admired. I just think from a storyline perspective, Eagles 49ers carry so much juice. Like I would say even more than Eagles Cowboys at this point.
I agree.
And I think going there and given the way they reacted to a quarterback going down last year, I think winning without your starting quarterback is probably the most interesting of the storylines.
San Francisco was left without like any quarterback who could throw the ball, so it has to be like Kenny Gainwell. Like throwing
no, I think
lefty.
it would be fun
if
the rule that they implemented
is the reason. No, that's
so Tanner McKee out in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
He returns to Northern California and leads the Eagles on this comeback. And then Bo's on the postgame show. I called Tanner McKee. Yeah. So from a storyline perspective, that would probably be the most like fascinating.
Sua would be playing too, of course.
I'll get to Sua.
That's as far as that's the one that
I got a little bit more in the weeds.
Okay, so I think beating San Francisco would be the most fascinating storyline just because of the way that game ended, and I'm not disagreeing with them, but there are like 49ers fans and even writers who think that like the 49ers broke the Eagles as if these problems weren't festering before that game, right? And that the Eagles were this powerhouse that ran into the 49ers and everything did go to south with that game. But as we've discussed, these were issues that were below the surface, and then that game was the volcano.
Okay, I think that's good. For me, I think here's how it plots out. I think this weekend, the worst case scenario that you talked about, Deniz, happens. I think the Commanders beat the Cowboys. And the Eagles, it's similar to the last couple games. The offense is productive. They're doing what they need to do. And the defense cannot stop Tyrod Taylor. And Tyrod Taylor leads a 98-yard touchdown drive to close the game. And the Eagles lose a chance to be the 2 seed and have to go to Tampa Bay. And as the week starts, Nick Sirianni comes out and says, I have made a change at defensive coordinator. Sean Desai is the defensive coordinator again. I have seen the error of my ways. I watched what happened, just like you all did. We're rolling with Sean Desai, and we've got Dom coming back on the sidelines. They go to Tampa Bay. Jalen Hurts exercises the demons of that playoff loss, and they beat the Bucs. Nothing too crazy in that game. Is New Orleans more interesting? Is Atlanta more interesting? I think the most interesting story is probably Tampa. Sorry for the camera that you're gonna have to deal with.
It's gonna might need to go on Game Time and head down there.
To your Cowboys point, Zach, I think there is a little bit of Eagles-Cowboys fatigue in my mind. And so I think in the second round, it's more fun if they go to Detroit.
Okay.
This Detroit team that is having this unbelievable season that they've never had before.
How would they go to
division
Detroit?
title banner.
They could go to Detroit.
There would have to be
There'd be 2 upsets.
Yeah.
Oh, 2 upsets. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Well, I'll take the Cowboys lose as the
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Then this is okay because they reseed.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So they go to Detroit, and it's a back and forth game. The Desai defense is looking much better, but with
Hold on, didn't you say Washington and the Washington and the Giants would both win? So Detroit would be the 2 seed in that scenario. So like to stay consistent with your scenario there.
Okay.
Detroit would pass Dallas if that happened. Assuming they win. Unless if they lose. Okay, I see. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Sorry,
I've got it all.
No.
As if I haven't.
No. The 5 seed can go to the 2 seed too. That had happened last year.
Yeah.
The Dallas
let's not let facts get in the way of fiction.
All it takes is
all possible. Yeah.
No, I was trying to make it sound like it was more likely then.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
Back and forth game. Detroit at the end of the game down 7. Scores a touchdown with it's actually a little bit longer left. It's about a minute left. And they go for 2.
Come on, be like Sheila and say exactly the second.
Coyote Awashika reports as eligible.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man.
And catches the game leading 2-point conversion to give them a lead.
Wow.
However,
he doesn't report.
However, he does report. It is all kosher. The Eagles then drive down the field and face a 4th and 1 at the 45. A little bit too long for Jake Elliott. They've got about 30 seconds left.
Indoors? That's not too long for Jake Elliott.
They set up for the tush push, and Jalen Hurts takes a step back and instead throws a pass to Sua Opeta,
brilliant,
who catches and rumbles down into field goal territory. The Eagles win the game with their own offensive lineman.
Okay.
Pass.
I like it.
NFC Championship game is exactly as Zach already described. The first play of the game, Jalen Hurts is concussed. The second play of the game, Marcus Mariota's legs fall off. The third play of the game, Tanner McKee throws a 98-yard touchdown pass to Julio Jones, and the Eagles romp over the San Francisco 49ers. Dom DeSandro body slams Dre Greenlaw after the game, and they go to the Super Bowl. Now, the Super Bowl is fascinating because there are a lot of really good matchups.
Sure.
You've got the potential rematch with Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs, a chance to exact vengeance. You've got, the rematch of the crazy Buffalo game. Baltimore would be really fun.
Is there like a non-Andy Reid coach in the AFC? Andy Reid tree?
Shane
It's like
Steichen.
Harbaugh,
removed,
Peterson. Yeah.
Baltimore would be fun. Another year of like 2 black starting quarterbacks against each other would be fun. Pittsburgh, you get the Pennsylvania battle. Jacksonville, you couldn't beat Andy. Can you beat Doug? Indianapolis, Steichen against Sirianni. But I think we all know we want to do a full week of shows from Audubon Hardware.
I love this.
Get Joe Flacco going up against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yes.
And I'm sorry.
Zach just wouldn't sleep the whole 2 weeks.
I'm sorry, but Super Bowl MVP Michael Dunn raising the Lombardi Trophy. That's how this season ends in my fantasy.
So there's one wrinkle to that too. Okay, Arizona makes a coaching change. Jonathan Gannon's available, and Kevin Stefanski brings him on staff on retainer for the 2-week contract leading up to the Super Bowl.
I like that. The one note in here I forgot is that before the Niners game, the Eagles re-signed Christian Ellis, and that is the key to their defensive performance.
Okay,
but that sort of went without saying.
Incredible job by Jim Schwartz, by the way, in Cleveland.
Awesome coach.
Yeah.
Awesome coach.
That's just defensive coordinator.
I just missed that guy.
Out of your pores.
I have always been very pro Jim Schwartz. I don't know what anyone's problem was with him, but yeah, I think it's important in these times to remember that it would be good to have him again. That's all.
All right.
Stops the run, doesn't need the blitz. Not into all that pre-snap disguise. Just play it simple. Good after him.
Let's talking about like the 1970 Baltimore Orioles.
Yes.
It's not disguise if you do the same thing every time. It's also not disguise when Hassan Reddick isn't even lined up on the line of scrimmage. You can tell he's going to drop. Like this dropping stuff, he's lined up like a nickel corner. And like it's just driving me crazy. Like it's not disguise. And you're letting the offense dictate that your best pass rusher isn't going to pass rush. That's all.
This guys or those guys?
I wish it was those guys.
All right, that'll do it for this.
Shout out to loyal viewer Mike Walsh. Sorry, Bo, I never let you.
Mike not Walsh, your Walsh, not our Walsh, but Mike Walsh.
Mike Walsh, yeah. His boys, I'm not sure how old they are, but little boys came up to me at the during warm-ups, like elementary school age.
Yeah.
Bo. They came up to me at warm-ups for the game. and they just came up to me and they said, "We watch you on PHLY."
Oh,
and I was like, "That is awesome! Like, don't you guys don't you get bored? It's just like talking." They're like, "No, we love it." And,
thanks.
I mean, Evren always wants to watch
This is literally
too.
our profession.
Yeah, but like,
It's not
I don't think like
understand his
8-year-olds
point.
are the main demographic, right? And so they were like, "Oh no, we love it," and got to meet Mike Walsh, take a photo,
That's
and everything.
great.
So yeah, it was cool. So
now you know
shout
what
out to
Zach's daily life is like.
I usually get a don't let Bo rip on you so much. So
I am getting more and more people just yelling out like "Professor" like as I walk to my seats. So
That's good.
That's fun.
the funny thing is, you're a legitimate professor, and it takes being on the show with calling you professor for people to acknowledge that.
That's true. My students.
Well, yeah, but why would they otherwise?
No.
That would be a fun thing.
I
To
guess
just
I go to
shout
the
out
grocery
random
store.
occupations that random people just guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Doctor. All right.
The doctor's one that people actually do say.
Yeah, well, I know. Yeah.
Accountant. Yeah. All right.
Slumlord. All right. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. We will be here on Sunday for the kickoff show with Jamie Lynch and checking in with Zach from MetLife Stadium. And then we'll be here for the post-game show afterwards to talk about everything that happened. Did the Eagles get the 2 seed? Are they going to New Orleans or Tampa Bay or Atlanta? All that good stuff. Lots to talk about. And then next week, we got a full week of shows, baby. Full playoff mode. Maybe some special guests along the way. So thank you for listening. For Julia and Deniz and Zach, I'm Bo. We will talk to you on Sunday. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.